Hey everybody, have you considered starting a podcast? We here at Screwball highly recommend Podbean for getting your podcast out to a larger audience. Podbean has given us the ability to easily bring you Screwball each and every week on all of your favorite podcast services. Use the link podbean.com/screwball to sign up and save up to 35% annually. You can also use the link podbean.com/pro/screwball to sign up for a business subscription. Happy podcasting. Hey everybody, welcome back to Screwball, a baseball podcast, your home for everything baseball. I'm your host, Mike Lepre, here with my co-host, Frank White.
Hey, how's it going?
This is episode 93 of Screwball, and we are moving on to part 4 of our all-time list series. This is the first episode in the National League portion of the list we'll be doing, so we're going to start as we did with the American League and start in the NL East. We are also going to continue the same way we've been doing the lists in the last 3 episodes, where we start kind of go around the horn and start from the catching position and do every position one by one, as well as a full pitching staff, some relievers, and then some honorable mentions. So let's just get it going here with the first team in the NL East we're going to do is the Atlanta Braves. So to start off the Atlanta Braves, we're going to go, again, from the catching position, best player to ever play that position for the Braves, and then just keep going position by position. So to start at catching position, I have Joe Torre as the all-time catcher for the Braves. First base, I have Freddie Freeman. Second base, Marcus Giles. Third base, Chipper Jones. Shortstop, Johnny Logan. And then the 3 outfield positions, in no specific positioning, is Hank Aaron, Andrew Jones, and Dale Murphy. And even though there's no DH right as I'm speaking, there's no DH in the National League. There probably will be soon. Yeah. So we did add a DH position just to just be able to get an extra hitter or extra player in there.
Yeah, and keep a uniform with the American League.
Right. So as for the DH position, I put Eddie Matthews. And then for the starting pitching staff, probably one of the better ones you'll see, I have Greg Maddux, Tom Glavine, John Smoltz, Warren Spahn, and Phil Niekro. And then for my 2 relievers, I have Craig Kimbrell and Mike Remlinger. And then some honorable mentions I have are David Justice, Eric O'Flaherty, Herman Long, Rabbit Marinville, and Fred McGriff. So that's how the Braves list for me is shaking out. One of the more successful franchises, especially in the last 25, 30 years. Yeah. So, a lot of more familiar names on there, and, again, one of the better franchises. So there's going to be some big names. So.
Sure. And my list is very similar to yours, as you can imagine. A lot of our lists are kind of this way when you have a lot of legends. But, start with catching Joe Torre, first base Freddie Freeman, second base Mark Lemke, third base Eddie Matthews, shortstop Johnny Logan, outfield Hank Aaron, Andrew Jones, hopefully will be Hall of Fame Andrew Jones at some point, Dale Murphy. DH, I put Chipper Jones. You had Eddie Matthews, I had Chipper Jones. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Starting pitching Warren Spahn, Phil Niekro, and then obviously the 90s pitching staff there, Maddux, Smoltz, and Glavine. Relief pitcher Craig Kimbrell and Mike Remlinger. Honorable mentions to Crime Dog, Fred McGriff. Of course, you could put him on a lot of lists. I think we had him on Tampa Bay. You can mention him with Toronto. You can mention him with the Braves. You can even mention him later on. We might even mention him with the Padres.
Yeah, I think so.
Dodgers.
Yeah.
I mean, he was everywhere, and he was good everywhere he went. Rabbit Marinville, David Justice. David Justice, something really gets... No one really thinks about David Justice, right? He played pretty good with the A's and the Braves and the Yankees even, so he's a good player. Mm-hmm. Herman Long, Vic Willis, and Rick Camp. Okay. Some other guys to mention. But yeah, the Braves have a deep history. Kind of when they're good, they have a lot of really good guys kind of everywhere. Still to this day. Outfield's strong and the infield's strong. Your pitching's good. When they're good, they're kind of good everywhere. And then they have a couple years where they're bad and they struggle a little bit, but then they kind of get everything at once again.
Right.
It's kind of how it goes. That's why you kind of see generational kind of gaps for some of these guys. Some real old guys, and it's, Eddie Matthews period, and Hank Aaron, and then, the 90s, and then Freddie Freeman. So it's kind of like a big chunks. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of how you expect a franchise to kind of go.
Right. I mean,
ups and downs.
Yeah. It's like I said to you before we recorded. It's like, the second base position's kind of open for them as far as a franchise. And that's, right for the taking with Ozzie Albies, with the kind of the team that they have around right now with Acuna, him, Freddie Freeman, Dansby Swanson you could see him staying there for a while and being their franchise shortstop. So,
sure. I think third base is locked up.
Well, yeah.
I know Austin Riley, gave her hell this year, but with Chipper Jones and Eddie Matthews battling that out at third base, I mean, you're going to have to put together one of the greatest careers to I think, match those two guys.
Yeah, and Chipper Jones had one of the greater careers you'll ever see, and he was a switch hitter. So, I mean,
And he's still around baseball in the Braves.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got Eddie Matthews. One great stat with him is he played with the Braves in all three cities.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Boston, Milwaukee, and Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
So that's quite hard to do.
Yeah, he was around for a while, and around at the perfect time.
Another guy people don't really remember. You say Eddie Matthews is like, I don't even really know who he is. He only hit, mashed the ball for a while and played great defense at third base.
I think he had 500 plus home runs. So.
Yeah, 509 or something like that, right?
Yeah, what the hell?
That's what happens. I guess you get mixed in. I think he played with Hank Aaron a little bit too, so that's a good.
Probably.
He played in all three cities, so it's a good way to kind of get lost, right?
Yeah, well, he had a long career, so did Hank Aaron, so it makes sense that they cross paths at some point, I would think.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Braves, I mean, great offense, and obviously the pitching is ridiculous. It's one of the best, probably could be up there with the best pitching staff that you'll see on any of these lists.
My big thing with their pitching staff is they're all different. It's the most unique pitching staff.
Oh, yeah.
Warren Spahn is your older, at the time, power pitcher, right? Never coming out, pitching a lot of innings. That's just kind of how it is. And you have Phil Niekro, who threw forever, knuckleball, junk guy, crazy, right? Maddox, pinpoint. Smoltz, at the time, was power, right? And good accuracy. And then Glavine was like a utility man. Kind of did a little bit of everything. So their pitching staff, if you had to roll that out each day, you're never getting the same kind of look.
No.
As some of these other teams, you kind of felt like you had a similar look for at least a couple of the guys.
Right. Right.
This one's like you have a knuckleballer mixed in there, and then you got an old school guy, and it seems like you're getting like a unique look every day if you had to actually face them.
Yeah, imagine that, trying to deal with that pitching staff. You just have no days
you're
off.
5 guys, Glavine. Yeah, no, you're all right.
Yeah, they can make it work.
Yeah, we got to win this one. We're going against their worst guy. It's Tom Glavine.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we got it.
Yeah, we'll take him down.
So let's move on to the second team here we have is the Miami Marlins / Florida Marlins. Yeah. And this is a list that has, I would say, obviously more recent people because they didn't come into the 90s, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, I think pretty much everyone on this list we've watched.
Yeah, I pretty much remember.
Even if it was the tail end of their careers or something, we watched them on the field, which is pretty cool to kind of see.
Right. Yeah, I pretty much remember all these guys, I think. But so, again, starting from the catching position, the all-time catcher I have for the Marlins is JT Realmuto, very current player. First base, Jeff Conine. Second base, Luis Castillo. Third base, Mike Lowell. Shortstop, Hanley Ramirez. Outfield, in no particular positioning, is Giancarlo / Mike Stanton. Marcell Ozuna and Gary Sheffield. And then at DH, because they just have an abundance of outfielders, I have Cliff Floyd. And as far as their starting pitching staff, I have Josh Johnson, Dontrell Willis, Jose Fernandez, Josh Beckett, and Kevin Brown. Then as far as the relievers, I have Rob Nen and Steve Cishek. Some honorable mentions, again, because they just have an abundance of outfielders, Christian Yelich and Juan Pierre, Ricky Nolasco, and Edgar Renteria, and Antonio Alfonseca. I forget how to say his name, but yeah, those are my 5 kind of bench guys. So Marlins, I'll let you get into your list, but kind of, obviously, like I said, more recent guys. They won the World Series 97 and 03. So you're going to find some guys from there, and then it looks like they're going to have some success coming soon. So, you might even see some of these names get switched around for some future stars that are coming up. So
yeah, it's a good young franchise, right? They got 2 World Series wins and their postseason really dominance when they're in the postseason.
Yeah,
it's pretty crazy. But yeah, a lot of recent names. And the Florida Marlins were better. The colors, the pinstripe, the Florida Marlin logo was really cool with the actual Marlin. So I think that was really cool compared to the Miami. But the stadium in Miami, even at its worst looking, was way better than playing at the Dolphins, the Florida Stadium. That's just how it is.
Yeah.
This list is very similar. Catcher Realmuto, first base Derek Lee. Gotta love Derek Lee. He was a guy I really liked watching him play with the Cubs. When the Cubs had a couple of years there, Ramos Ramirez and the fellas. Luis Castillo. This is pre-Mets. He was really good with the Marlins. Not bad with the Mets, but obviously dropped a fly ball and had some other incidents there. Third base Miguel Cabrera. I know his stint there was not long, but those couple of years were pretty dominant, right?
Right. Yeah.
Shortstop Hanley Ramirez. This is when he was a 5-tool player. Outfield Juan Pierre. I think he should be a guy that really gets a little look at for Hall of Fame. no one really credits. He's over 2,000 hits, a bunch of stolen bases, a bunch of hits.
He was a great player.
Kind of seemed to always be on a team that was winning. You always kind of wanted him, right?
Right, yeah.
So I always liked Juan Pierre. Outfield Stanton, outfield Cliff Floyd, Mike Lowell, DH spot. Pitching, Josh Johnson. He was really good there. Dontrelle Willis, those couple of years were incredible. Jose Fernandez, obviously could have easily been at the top of this list if he had, been able to, tally up some more games there. Anibal Sanchez was there for a while. Josh Beckett. Obviously, you might remember most of these guys for their careers, maybe on a different franchise, but this is where they got their start, and this is where they got maybe 4 or 5 years of their careers in.
Yeah, true.
Relief pitcher Rob Nen and Steve Cishek. On the bench, Dan Uggla. That guy had some forearms out the wazoo.
Sure.
And he mashed the ball. I believe I had him as rookie for second year in fantasy. And he went nuts, like 40 home runs. It was crazy. Edgar Monterey, one of the best postseason players.
Oh, yeah.
He won 3 World Series, and he was the MVP on all 3 teams or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Marlins, Giants, I think it was the Cardinal or Boston or something, right? He was something. He had a game-winning hit on all 3 teams. It was something, some stat. He was the only guy.
Yeah.
Gary Sheffield, one of the best batting stances of all time. Jeff Conine, A.J. Burnett, no-hitter on 1 million pitches and blowing the back window out of the truck, right?
Yep.
And A.J. Ramos, more recent guy. But a lot of these guys, like I said, you watch their career at some point, for us at least.
Yeah. Yeah, it's... I forget, we even talked about this, too, when they became a franchise. I always think of 97 as their coming out because of the Edgar Monterey hit and winning the World Series and, all that stuff. So I always think of 97, but obviously they were there before that.
And I think a big moment for the Marlins, even though this was after 97 and already winning and all that, was it almost seemed like when Clemens whipped that ball over Miggy's head. And Miggy never really stepped out of the box, and they had like a showdown. Mm-hmm. It was almost like a weird kind of story to get the Yankees, right? The most powerful franchise in baseball, right? And possibly in all sports, going against some wimpy team that just kind of got here. Mm-hmm. But they were able to stand toe-to-toe with them.
Right.
They kind of set the franchise, even though that was kind of everyone once, but it was able to set the franchise kind of like, hey, we're here too. We're new, I thought that was always a telling moment for just the whole franchise. It just kind of stood toe-to-toe with an older superstar in a franchise that goes back 30 million years versus a franchise that's been here for 3 years and,
they don't have much. They don't have much behind their franchise. So that's pretty cool. But moving on to another one of the, I guess at this point, older franchises, the Mets. So to start again, the same way we start the other teams, we'll start the catcher position with the all-time catcher being Mike Piazza. At first base, Keith Hernandez. Second base, Daniel Murphy. Third base, David Wright. Shortstop, Jose Reyes. 3 outfield positions is Darryl Strawberry, Carlos Beltran, and Mookie Wilson. DH, Edgardo Alfonso. And then the starting pitching staff I have is Tom Siver, Doc Gooden, Jerry Koosman, Jacob deGrom, and Ron Darling. And the 2 relievers I picked were John Franco and Jesse Orosco. And then as far as the honorable mentions, Tug McGraw, Lenny Dykstra, Howard Johnson, John Stearns, and John Matlack. So, a franchise, the Mets, who started off, famously bad, and then, really kind of fell into their own and have been part of some of baseball's biggest moments, especially in the 86 playoffs and World Series.
Miracle Mets.
Yeah, they also had some good years in the 2000s and into the 2010s where they went to the World Series. So they've had a mixed bag of a franchise, especially, they've had their highs and their lows. But they've always seemed to get talent, and at different positions. And
the Mets are always in the headlines.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly how New York wants their teams, in the headlines.
And
good or bad, they're in the headlines.
Yeah, they're there. You never forget about them.
No, you're never going to forget about the Mets. So my list is very similar. You got Mike Piazza at catcher, Keith Hernandez at first. Keith Hernandez the other day, I believe he was getting his number retired by the Mets recently announced. And apparently he leaked something about some sort of Old Timers Day coming to the Mets this year.
Okay.
So that'd be something to watch, right?
That'd be cool.
If we can get the other game, actually get the game of baseball together, right?
Sure.
Second base, Edgardo Alfonso. Third base, there, Wright. Mr. Met, right? Some people called him.
Mm-hmm.
Jose Reyes at shortstop. Outfield, Darryl Strawberry. Carlos Beltran. I got Cleon Jones.
Mm-hmm.
DH, Rusty Staub. Just seemed like a spark plug there for them.
Sure.
Pitching, Tom Seaver, Doc Gooden, Jerry Koosman, David Cohn, and deGrom. Some of the better pitching. Relief pitcher John Franco and Jesse Orosco. And on the bench, honorable mention, whatever you want to kind of call it. You got Mookie Wilson, obviously his importance to the team. Lee Mazzilli, Kevin McReynolds, Gary Carter, another spark plug.
Mm-hmm.
Him and Rusty Staub seem like spark plugs for that franchise throughout the years. Ori Dickey, very memorable Met, right? Knuckleball and winning Cy Youngs and crazy stuff like that. And Tug McGraw. Some guys I would put on the bench or extra pitchers, whatever you want to kind of call them.
Yeah. Again, you got a quite the mix there. Obviously, a lot of these guys were in the '80s. Jesse Orosco and Doc Gooden, Darryl Strawberry, Dykstra. They had quite the team back then.
Yeah, they had quite the ruckus on the field as well, and on the dugout, and
and
the locker room, and behind the outfield fence, and wherever else they could get problems.
They had
David Cohn, even, right? He was a guy out the nightlife too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So even Keith Hernandez, who is about unassuming of a guy as you'd think, had his his share of partying,
smoking cigarettes and stuff in the dugout, right?
Yeah. So, they had some wild years. Oh my God!
Back
Yeah.
with the mustache.
Yeah.
This franchise is just it's got its. And then you have someone like Tom Seaver, who just seems like, even though they're one of the greatest pitchers of all time, just seems almost forgotten in history because it's just Tom Seaver. And he never said a word, right?
Yeah,
he stretched really far, and his knee hit the ground. That's like people all remember him as that, but he was one of the greatest pitchers. You never hear people talk about Tom Seaver.
Mm. Yeah,
you just
Tom
never hear
terrific,
it, right?
Yeah.
It's just like, hey, he's there, he's good. He's just he's always going to be there, but we'll talk about everyone else.
Yeah, it's weird. It's
then you get the nuts, Strawberry and Gooden and Dykstra. I mean, that's just where Ruckus and Zoos, those '80s teams were just. I mean, documentary. That's,
yeah. If you guys can check that out, that 30 for 30 is just it'll spin your head.
Mickey Mantle in the middle of that. You would have had the perfect Ruckus, and then like Yogi as their coach.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
I don't know how Davey Johnson did it.
I didn't think he just never showed up. He was just like, "It's the lineup. Go play.
Yeah, good luck.
And I'm out of here. I do not care what happens. Just show up to the dugout by 1. The game's at 1. Show up, be in the dugout by 1.
Yeah.
After that, I'm out of here.
Yeah, you guys.
I don't care. Just show up each day.
Yep.
I don't care if you're hammered or you got people with you or what you're doing. As long as you're showing up and we're winning, I don't care.
Yeah, they were quite the team, I gotta say. So they've had quite the mix of teams over the past few years. So you can see that reflected in the list. But moving on to their rivals, the Philadelphia Phillies, another franchise that has gone back quite a bit and has had their mixed success of winning and controversies. So starting again at the catcher position, I have as the starting catcher Carlos Ruiz. At first base, I have Ryan Howard. Second base, Chase Utley. Third base, Mike Schmidt. Shortstop, Jimmy Rollins. And outfield positions, Richie Ashburn, Bobby Abreu, and Bobby Abreu, and the third guy being Ed Delahunty. And then at DH, Dick Allen. And then my starting pitching staff consists of Steve Carlton, Robin Roberts, Roy Halladay, Cole Hamels, and Cliff Lee. Then the relievers I have are Brad Lidge and Ron Reed. And some honorable mentions I have are Larry Boa, Pete Alexander, Joe Horner, and Scott Rowland. So a team that I kind of didn't really think had a lot of depth. There was even some really, really old. I think Ed Delahunty is from the late 1800s, I think. Yeah. But then you have guys like Ryan Howard, Chase Utley, and Jimmy Rollins where they had their more recent success in the mid to late 2000s. So you got quite the mix here of people. The Phillies, I think they have 2 World Series at this point. They had one in 1980 or something in 08. Was there other? I think they have 2. Correct? Or?
Yeah, I know they went a long period of time without winning.
Sure. Yeah, so I mean you could see that reflected in the list here. So
the Philadelphia A's, they were at one point, right?
So. Yes, I mean it's like a lot of time in between the success. So
yeah. So again, our lists are always very similar. For me, catcher Darren Daulton, first base Dick Allen, second base Utley, third base Mike Schmidt, shortstop Jimmy Rollins, outfield Richie Ashburn and Bobby Abreu, and the other outfielder Sherry McGee, DH Ryan Howard, of course, on the Hall of Fame ballot this year. Pitching Steve Carlton, another feel like forgotten, right? You never really hear anyone talk about Steve Carlton.
Totally, yeah.
And if you do, you talk about Tom Seaver together, right?
Yeah.
Next starting pitcher Pete Alexander, Robin Roberts, Cole Hamels, and Kurt Schilling. Relief pitchers Tug McGraw and Turk Farrell. Some bench guys, Scott Rowland, another Hall of Fame guy. I think he'll be in, a year, maybe 2 years. Maybe he'll be in the Hall of Fame. No, next couple of years.
Yeah.
The good old Lenny Dykstra.
Oh, my God.
He's just a maniac. Cy Williams, Ed Delhenne, Delhante, Jim Bunning, and Ron Reed.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, like I said, they've had more recent success, and they had some success in the, I believe, late 70s, early 80s area. I think it was
Mike
nice.
Schmidt, the pinstripes, and blue Philly jerseys, and
more
Veterans Field, right? Was it Veterans Field?
I believe so. Yeah,
Wasn't quite a very nice place, and then they got the Citizens Bank, which is a very nice stadium, right in the same place.
Yep.
But Philly, you know how Philly is. They have their long periods of, even all their sports teams, they have their long periods of just not successful. But when they're good, there's a rumble and a yelling coming out of those Philly fans that are it's unbelievable. It's like Yankees or New York and Boston fans mixed together when Philly's good.
Yeah, right.
Or something bad's going on, right? There's a mix of whatever not great things are happening. It's just your Philly fans.
Yeah, they love their teams, man. I can't take that.
They'll talk as much shit about their team as anybody. But if you come in and say something about, like, who's this guy?
Yeah.
They don't like that.
No. But yeah, you're right. They will rip their own team.
Oh yeah, rip them to shreds. With Santa Claus, that's what they do. So,
Yeah. They're one of the more interesting fan bases. So that's for damn sure.
But they're stick together.
Oh yeah.
Push comes to shove, it's like, say someone else comes in and starts talking about, who's this guy? Slap him around a little bit.
They love that shows they love their team. It's like you said, like New York and Boston. They love their teams. So, what the hell.
Yeah.
But moving on to the final team, I guess franchise, because it's the Nationals, but it's also Nationals Expos. Thrown in there, so
Senators. It goes all the way wherever you want it to go. It goes.
Yeah. So there's again, like with the other list, there's some very very recent names, and some very familiar names, very closely close names to the 90s and 80s and stuff. So starting again at the catcher position, the all-time catcher I have for the Nationals is Gary Carter. Nationals Expos, because he wasn't on the Nationals.
No.
First base, I have Ryan Zimmerman. Second base, Jose Vitro. Third base, Tim Wallach. Shortstop, Trey Turner. 3 outfield positions I have are Andre Dawson, Tim Raines, and Bryce Harper. And at DH, I have Anthony Rendon. The starting pitching rotation I have is Max Scherzer, Dennis Martinez, Steven Strasburg, Steve Rogers, and Gio Gonzalez. Then for the 2 relievers, I have Jeff Reardon and Tim Burke. Then for some honorable mentions, I have Sean Doolittle, Rusty Staub, Rondell White, Ian Desmond, and Marquise Grissom. So again, some very, very familiar names, especially if you've been watching baseball the last 25, 30 years. So there's definitely some names there you watched.
Sure.
And they're still active, a bunch of them.
Yeah. And if we kept it to just the Nationals list, you'd have even more Ray-like names, where the Rays had some names, if we just kept it strictly Nationals, you're talking, Mike Lieberthal and Siriano and Don, right?
Yeah, sure.
And Nick Johnson and
God.
And Ronnie Belisario or whoever you want to get out there. If we just kept it to the Nationals, but you couldn't do that. So
Right.
But yeah, my list is somewhat similar here. Gary Carter, of course, a catcher. First base, Andres Galarraga. He was just a massive human. Second base, Jose Vidro. Third base, Ryan Zimmerman. Shortstop, Orlando Cabrera. Outfield, Tim Raines, Andre Dawson, and Big Bad Mad Vlad, Vladimir Guerrero Sr. He was great, too. You always see the videos of him on the AstroTurf, young, and just whipping that ball in third base, throwing people out. He was remarkable.
Oh, yeah.
DH, Larry Walker, recent Hall of Famer. Pitching-wise, Max Scherzer, Dennis Martinez, Strasburg, Steve Rogers. I think that's pretty much exactly the same as Mike. And the last one, I got Jordan Zimmerman. I don't think you see him much on many lists, but he had a really good career with the Nationals and do a no-hitter. I think, his impact on the Nationals or the revival of the Nationals, I think, is important.
Yeah, definitely.
Relief pitcher Jeff Reardon and Mel Rojas. And some honorable mentions, Bryce Harper, Rendon, Trey Turner, Rondell White, Pedro Martinez, and Tyler Clippard.
Yeah, some good names there. Again, very familiar names. They really built up quite the team to be able to take that title coming up on 3 years ago now in 2019.
Howie Kendrick and those guys with that team, yeah.
Yeah, Rendon and Strasburg came up big. And
you
Scherzer
could probably sneak Soto on at this point if you really want to, but I try being, you got to also understand that just because he's really good right now or his projection is good, you got to still give the guys credit who did it already.
Yeah, right.
The stats are there,
Yeah, he'll definitely find his way on the list.
Sure.
And he's a fantastic player. He's only 22, 23. I mean, he's
been around for 4 years or something. Right?
I know. So he's fantastic. If he signs a long-term deal, because there were talks before the lockout of him signing a big deal with them, or possibly if they don't do that, they trade him. But if he's a franchise guy, he's a franchise guy. He's legitimately one of your better hitters ever.
And I think with him, is a crazy stat with him. I believe he, because his first game he played was ended up being a suspended game, right? I believe his first career game was a suspended game. So I believe and then they finished the game in July or August.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he ended up hitting so the next game he played, I think he ended up playing and hitting a home run or something. But I think he got his first career hit or his first career home run or something it was before his official first game.
Yeah, it's funny.
Because technically he started the game in, May or April.
Mm.
It was May. And they got rained out, suspended, so it didn't come back until June, July, August. But then that was the next day they played, and he got a hit or whatever. So his first career hit came before his first career game played or something. It was something crazy like that, which was I always remember was Juan Soto because I'm like that's just nuts.
That's funny. That's so weird.
Yeah, it was very weird, but it's pretty crazy there. Well, his first hit came before his something. It was something weird, but it was something along those lines. I always remember that with him. But the Nationals, they have a good base of talent throughout the years.
Sure.
Especially the Expos. I mean, strike shortened Expos team might have won the World Series.
Yeah.
It might have some of the best talent you're ever going to see.
Yeah.
Right? Out of the 90s teams. I mean that talent on that team really could compete with what the Yankees had in the late 90s. I mean, look at it. I mean, there were some almost a Hall of Famer at a lot of positions.
Yeah. They were a lot of people projected them to really that was their year.
And you got guys even Javier Vasquez not mentioned, right? Really good players.
Yeah.
There was some really good teams and great uniforms. Just not a great stadium, and the AstroTurf really didn't really bode well for the players.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously they had attendance issues, but I think if the team ever went back there, they wouldn't have attendance issues as long as they get a stadium.
Right.
So we'll kind of hope for that, but great uniforms too. But overall, the NL East is a pretty strong division. Again, it kind of breaks down how you expect. You have two really old franchises, right? Braves and Phillies, really old. You have the Mets, who are pretty old.
Yeah, at this point, yeah.
You have the Marlins, who are brand new, for the most part. And then you have the Nationals / Expos, and I think the Senators technically goes to the Twins, but they kind of get some of the Senators stuff. It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
So they're relatively, they're not that old, but they're not that new either. So they kind of have the perfect breakdown.
Right.
And they have great rivalries, right? Some divisions really don't have it.
Yeah.
You feel like the AL West doesn't have too much, right? Mariners, there's rivalries, but it's not like
no, it's not like
something to really think about. The NL East really does. The Mets and the Phillies, they really don't like each other.
Mm-hmm.
And the Braves and Phillies, it's just
Braves and Mets.
It's just they have that rivalry that you really want. So it was a good division. It's really deep. It's got a lot of good talent. Some really good pitching. And overall, it's a pretty good episode. There's a lot of legends we talked about, really.
Oh, yeah. Well, like we said in the beginning, we started with the Braves. It's like, talk about a hell of a team, especially in those 90s years. I mean, I believe they only got one ring from those 90s teams, but it felt like they were there. They were there in 95, 96.
It was them or the
98.
Yankees,
yeah, it was like,
It was the same. All right, well, it's going to be one of these teams, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of how it was, right?
Yeah, I think they faced off two of the...
Snuck in there one year. For the most part, it was just the Yankees and Braves, and we're going to move on with our lives, right?
Yeah, and then the one year the Marlins snuck in. So, this division had it kind of going on,
So, that's pretty much, it regarding our roster. Last little bit here is the trivia question. I think this is a pretty good one, too, especially we talked about some really good players in this team, right? In this franchise, with these franchises. So... there's actually only one franchise, current NL East franchise, that has a 500 or better win percentage in their franchise, wins losses.
Mm-hmm.
Only one. Which franchise is it?
You got a 20% shot if you just take a shot in the dark.
Yeah. The answer is the Braves. They have a .501 win percentage as a franchise. They are. I don't have their ties here. I didn't bring that up. I just have their wins losses. They are 10,820 and 10,757. Again, it evens out to a .501 win percentage, and they have some ties too. I'm sure there's probably like 100 ties because old school baseball.
Yeah.
But the second team in that division is the Nationals. They're second with the highest win percentage, with a .487 win percentage, 4,068 wins, 4,280 losses. So that's your breakdown at NL East. I believe there's only like 13 teams or 14 teams to ever in franchise, MLB current franchise, that have a 500 or better win percentage. So a little more than half the league don't have it.
Yeah.
And you have one team right at it. I think there's another team that was like not far from being under 500. So it's tough, especially when you're 1,000 years old.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just right.
Yeah, you have great years, and not every team has the Yankees, Cardinals, Dodgers success back in the day. Not every team had that. A lot of teams scuffled a lot of years and tried to figure teams out and get titles as they could. So, but yeah, that number makes sense because there's Red Sox and Yankees. Obviously those two are the big ones. Red Sox have more recent winning, and when they first were kind of brought in. Cardinals, I think, are second in World Series to the Yankees, so they make sense. Dodgers were there all the time. Giants go back a ways. The Oakland A's go back a ways. So there's a lot of franchises out there that have a lot of winning, and the Braves kind of find their way in there. Partly, I would guess, in part to these last 30 years that they've had. They've pretty much only had a few lean years, and that was when they kind of rebuilt for this team that they've got now. Yeah. So, pretty good on their part that they're still there and still, a big force in that division. You know?
Yeah. And those numbers always change. The franchise wins and loss and win percentage and the ties and stuff. Because, older games and older weeks, years and years and years, a million years ago, 1800s, things could change, right? Stats could change. Mm-hmm. So, you want to, these numbers can change too from where you go, where you get your information. So, how updated it is.
Right.
That's always a big thing too, especially right now with the lockout. Some info might not be fully updated.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's one of those things where it's kind of hard to get the perfect exact answer, but you have a pretty good answer.
Yeah, you pretty much are in the ballpark.
So like the RBI stats, technically, some guys might have some more like Babe Ruth, but certain places you go, they're right to the book. How it gets it. Some people are a little lenient. So, but it gives you an idea, kind of how tough it is for longevity when you're over 100 years old. Right, to be over 500. That's pretty remarkable to be over 500 over a 100-year franchise. Right, so
agreed.
It's very tough to do, especially nowadays with more teams as well. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely.
But some other side notes too to note. You're not going to get into too much of it, but the lockout, they're meeting, right? Negotiations a bit. They sent a proposal over. It was rejected, but sending a proposal is a good start, right? Gives you an idea of, hey, yeah, right. We remember we're supposed to sign this so we can get going. So that's good news. Hall of Fame coming up announcement, right? So that's pretty good news. So there are some relatively good things coming from baseball. And like I said, the proposal being sent is a good step.
Yeah.
Now you can know, okay, none of that was good, right? This is what we want. None of it's good. Now it's next step.
Yeah,
and they send one over, not very good, right? And then eventually get towards the middle. But you got to send something to get there.
Right, because it seemed for a while it was kind of like, well, what's going on? Why are you guys
first?
Yeah,
but we're talking, our big thing was what, early to mid-January. We're at mid-January. Pitchers and catchers are about a month away, a touch less than a month, right? Give or take about 30 days. You kind of need an answer.
Yeah, you got to figure something out.
Because you get an answer right before pitchers and catchers, people start coming in. There's still big free agents that got to sign. It's just a big rush to get things done. So they got to make an answer. They got to make a thing here soon, and I think they will. I think we're in a good spot. I think.
Yeah.
Relatively, we're in a good spot. I know it seems bleak at times, and super stupid stuff comes out, but overall, they know what needs to be done.
Yeah, you would think that they know the ultimate goal is to have a normal season, kind of, for the most part. Yeah, things may be rushed. Maybe spring training's a little pressed. Maybe free agent signings start happening like a whirlwind, like they did prior.
And I'm sure too. Let's just be right honest with it. I'm sure there's teams have been in contact with some of the players.
Yeah, probably.
Or someone maybe not technically in the organization, but for the organization, talk to the players or talk to his agent, or
Yeah, they just had
His
some
wife
side.
goes talks to this guy's wife to talk about negotiating for that player. So when the season comes back, they already know who's signing where.
Right.
I'm sure there's crazy stuff
Yeah,
like
there's-
that going on, right?
Mm.
It's just how it goes. I'm sure there's crazy things going on, but
yeah, I'm
these
sure.
teams are talking to each other about what they want to do. You see reports coming out, minor league signings going. So they have a plan for when this goes back. They know what they're doing.
Mm.
So that's not a big issue. And also, who would deal out the $300 million and all this money to Seager and all these guys who did get signed if you didn't think you were going to bring revenue back the next year?
Yeah, right.
You would think free agent would have been dead if they weren't expecting many teams.
Yeah,
right? Wouldn't that make sense?
That would be a bad sign. Yeah.
Why am I going to give you all this money? I don't know if I'm bringing money in next year. No, they're like, here's my money. We have pretty good confidence that we're going to bring some money in next year.
Yeah. Well, it also seems as though like there just haven't been negotiations. So like at the point where they actually do start sitting down and talking, then things get worked out. Once you start sitting down and talking to each other, you'll find a middle ground. They'd like to play hardball with each other, you know.
You don't want to blink first, and also I think it's the rocky road to get here. We didn't really, as the players, is what there's, you know, if you're a player association, we didn't like the way you did things.
Mm.
So we're not talking to you. We're going to push this out because we don't like the way you did things. We don't want to be the first ones coming in and be nice. So they really just were like, you know what?
Yeah,
We'll
screw
see
you
here,
guys.
right?
Yeah.
I think that was their thing too. It wasn't like they really kind of were mutual going into it. So they're like, you know what? We're not gonna play nice with you. We're gonna kind of sit here and be a little rocky with it. So I think that's kind of what they did at first. But now it's like, hey, all right, we gotta go.
Yeah.
It's like you're
enough playing around. You know.
yeah, your papers due at 12 o'clock. I mean, it's 11:50. So all right, that's plenty of time to maybe get it done, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what they did. But they wanted to show their disapproval with them by kind of being like, okay, we just won't talk to you for a while.
Sure.
We weren't happy with what was going on, so we want to change. So by showing that without saying a word to you is to not say a word to you. So,
Okay.
But I think they're going in the right direction by just setting a proposal, and there'll be talks here soon. I think it's just too important to do.
It just doesn't make any sense why they wouldn't.
The game is growing, and they need the game, and they signed free agents, and they already lost money, right? New stadiums coming in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And big plans to mess around with that is just boneheaded. But if there was anyone who's going to be boneheaded and do it, it'd be the guy they got, right?
Yeah, that's for sure.
Well, we'll see. That's our little bit of news there, baseball wise. With the actual league.
Yeah, I know he said coming into this episode, hopeful that we had better news, but it's kind of the same.
It's kind of the same, but there's something, right?
Yeah, there's some gears turning to some degree.
On,
yeah.
Football playoffs going on. That's pretty cool. College football ended. Georgia won. It's pretty cool there. Raiders made the playoffs and lost.
Yeah.
I haven't said much about them because I just don't want to cause a ruckus. But they had a tough year, but they made the playoffs and they played well in the playoffs, so
sure.
That's cool. Didn't get embarrassed. That's pretty much every other team so far. We'll see what happens there. But obviously, it's football's coming down to the real exciting parts, right? College football's over.
Mm-hmm.
Basketball, hockey are coming to their all-star breaks pretty soon.
Right.
Which means they're starting to come down the stretch. Which means it's that light switch goes on, and that sport's got its thing, right? And the light switch is almost turned on for baseball.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like, okay, we're about to turn the switch on, and we're going to turn the switch on to an empty case, right?
Right.
They're going to fill it with something.
Yeah.
It's going to be that CBA. So we'll see what's going to happen, but I think we got to have some answers here pretty soon. Hopeful was beginning to mid-January. I think the deadline is obviously, right beginning of February. It's like, hey, our guys are supposed to show up like tomorrow. We need an answer.
Yeah.
And the players are going to know that too. Like, hey, our job, like, hey, don't we go to work this week? Yeah. Maybe we should make an answer, right? Let's actually come together and stop, holding out here.
Mm-hmm.
So
let's figure it out.
Yeah. So we'll get there. We'll get there slowly but surely, right? That's baseball's way, but we'll get there.
Yeah. Yeah, you never know. I mean, it's frustrating as a fan. I'm sure it's frustrating for some of the players too. That are like, can we just play baseball?
Especially if you're a guy who just went to a new team.
Mm-hmm.
I like to go talk to the guys you might play with, right?
Yeah.
Coaches and the organization.
Yeah.
Oh, this is what the inside the stadium looks like from a home team, a home player, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Right. Well, when's my vacation gonna end, right? I gotta go work out again, or not work out, but when am I gonna have to go to spring training and stuff? I should probably know that, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
nice, right?
It's a weird time. It's a frustrating time, and they'll come together and they'll figure it out. It's just the when is what's killing people. The when, like why are we just sitting here not negotiating and trying to figure this out? But it's all bargaining. These guys are master negotiators. So on both sides they have guys. So they'll figure it out, hopefully sooner than later, and we'll get baseball back. So, but I mean, other than that, there's nothing really else going on. Obviously, there's they can't have really much going on. Some international signings and minor league signings, but it's nothing really worth running home and telling people about. So, so with that, I don't know if you really got any other notes or anything here.
No, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it. It's next week's the NL Central, which is a really, really exciting episode.
Mm-hmm.
Or next episode, I should say, not next week. But,
Mm-hmm.
It's exciting because those are some of the oldest franchises in the game.
Yeah.
You actually have the oldest franchise in the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Reds, and you get the Cardinals, and Pittsburgh been around a long time. The Cubs, honestly, they've had their share of ruckus. And you have the Brewers, who've been, I've been everywhere, man, kind of thing. Every place, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's really exciting with some super, super legends in that division.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that should be an exciting one. And then the NL West comes in with more of a mixture, like the NL East.
Yeah.
Where it's almost like, a little old, a little new, and somewhere in between.
Agreed. Yeah. Yeah, the NL Central will be good. There's a lot of teams that we like out there, especially the Cardinals we like a lot. So we'll see what those lists are looking like. And other than that, that's all I got. So I don't know if you got anything you want to wrap up with or.
No, that's pretty much it. Just look forward to answers, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Again, I'll say it again. Hopefully the next episode we'll have better news, but I'm sure it'll be something better. I just don't know what it'll be. So, or when it'll come.
Yeah.
But with that, I guess let's just wrap this episode up.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys for listening. You can catch this podcast on Apple Podcasts as well as Google Podcasts and Spotify. You can listen on our regularly updated YouTube channel as well as our website, screwball.podbean.com. You can follow me on Twitter at RealMikeLepre. You can follow me on Instagram at Mike Lepre.
And you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at FDubs10.
You can follow our official Screwball Twitter at ScrewballPod. You can follow our official Screwball Facebook at ScrewballPod. No E and Screw. And that's it from us, guys. We'll see you next week.
Yep. Take care.